Well, we just heard not too long ago about the man who forgave the policewoman who murdered his brother in a Texas community. And the nation was really moved by that news clip of that man embracing that former policewoman in a courtroom after she had been sentenced to 10 years in jail. And we're reminded of what Jesus said: if you forgive people, if you forgive men their trespasses, your Father in heaven will forgive you your sins and your trespasses. And let's face it, every human being is in need of forgiveness. All of us have made mistakes and done things that are wrong. Certainly nothing maybe to that extent, but whatever it is that you have done, here's an individual who was willing to forgive a woman who killed his brother. I don't know what I would do. You don't know what you would do if faced with a scenario like that. We don't know to the limit that we might be able to forgive an individual. But there's one thing that's very true, that unforgiveness, hate, bitterness, resentment is a very heavy load to carry on these bodies for all of our lives. And there are people that go throughout life, they've had bad things to happen to them. They had things to happen to them in the military, or maybe in business, or maybe life in general. And they have carried feelings of bitterness and hatred and resentment throughout all their lives, and it has a way of wearing us down. If there's someone that you need to forgive, as God has said, if you will forgive people their sins and their trespasses, your Father in heaven will forgive you. There's a feeling of release and relinquish when we're able to say, I forgive that individual. Corrie ten Boom was held in a prison camp in Germany during World War II. And after the war was over, she was speaking in a church, and she looked back there and she saw a German soldier that had been a guard while she was in prison, where she and her sister were held as prisoners. And there was something that really began to work on her as she was even speaking, to see this soldier sitting out there in church. And it was a terrible feeling of heaviness and resentment. And it was a very dark feeling that she had toward that soldier. And when it was over, the soldier came up to her. And he didn't realize she had been one of the prisoners. But he was talking to her about the job that he had had as a guard in a prison camp. And he realized that she possibly could have been a prisoner. And he stuck out his hand and he said, God has forgiven me and my life has been changed. And I don't feel very good about what I have done in my life, and I hope that you will forgive me. And Corrie ten Boom said that for, it seemed like an eternity, she stood there before she was able to lift up her hand and say, I forgive you and I love you in Jesus Christ. But she said when she was able to do that, there was the greatest feeling of release that came over her life, and a feeling of cleansing, and a feeling of being even forgiven by God herself, that she was able to forgive Him. And there was a tremendous empowerment that came in her life. When you're able to forgive, and when you're able to put things behind you, there is an empowerment and a refreshment and a release that will come upon your life that will empower you and move your life along to give you strength to do greater and even better things. Let's remember today that Jesus said, if you forgive people their trespasses, your Father in heaven will forgive you.